Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, wherever you guys are. I hope you're all having a great day. My day is actually better. The smoke is letting up a little bit, and I actually saw blue sky this morning, and I can actually see the mountains around me a lot clearer than I did. So I'm very happy about that. And I was just lazy this morning. I didn't go out early. It's hot now, but I didn't go out early and get any work done. So my bad. But I wanted I wanted to share something with you. I bought this book and it's called The Lost Ways, and I think you're probably seeing it backwards. I don't know how to fix that. But I ordered this book. I had ordered an herbal medicine book from the same company. I think it's actually in the same series as these books. But this book I bought, and it talks about the way that our grandparents and great grandparents, and maybe even your grandparents, um, did things without the use of all the modern high tech equipment kind of things, and how they survived. And the way things are going right now, and I honestly feel that it's imminent. But that's just me. You have your own opinion. But I'm telling you, because of, and it's just logical, all the restaurants, a lot of the markets, a lot of places that would use a lot of vegetables, a lot of beef, a lot of chicken, whatever, has been closed for quite some time. And as a result of that, a lot of the production in like the farmers, I heard a couple of farmers say that they couldn't sell their produce, so they basically were just giving it away or destroying it, which is horrible. They lost a lot of money and a lot of produce, and this whole stupid COVID thing that's been imposed on us and the world has really put everybody in a really bad way. And I don't mean to insult you if you have a different opinion. I apologize, but I am allowed to have mine. But as a consequence, a lot of things were shut down, a lot of production, things that would get the food to us. So as a result of that alone, we're going to head into a food shortage. And that's why it's so important that you know how to have a garden. I'm going to be putting in my winter garden, and I have canned a lot of stuff. My youngest son was so nice, gave me bags and bags and bags of rice and beans and kidney beans, and I mean, you name it. And so I was able to put up I did a lot of dry oven canning. And thanks to Page Family Homestead for that, by the way, because I wasn't quite sure how to do it. And they did it in one of their videos, and you need to go visit these people. They are so awesome. I mean, they just, when it comes to canning and stuff, she's got it. And I like that she does water bath canning, same as me, because I don't have one of those fancy electric canners, that pressure cookers, whatever you call them. I just do water bath canning, and that's what she does too. So I think maybe that's why I relate to her so well. But they have some really good ideas, and they show you how to do it, and it's just fantastic. So I've got tons of dry goods already canned and put up, and so I put whatever I could get out of my garden. My garden, as you know, failed this year, so I'm hoping for the winter garden to be better. But I did get some things put up. I was inundated with tomatoes, which was good, so I have but I don't have enough jars. You can't find jars and lids anywhere. So I had to put a lot of that in my freezer, which is okay because, you can still use it. It just takes up room in my freezer that I would like to put other things like chickens and turkey and that kind of thing. But it's okay. I mean, we do what we have to do, and I'll just have a crowded freezer. So anyway, I wanted to get into this book and kind of read something to you, and maybe this will help you understand a little bit better. But you need to, and it's going to be a slow recovery in the food area. So, I mean, the markets are going to start running out of things. The prices are going to go outrageous. So I do hope you guys have been prepping, and I've been a prepper for years. So I have plenty to hold me over. I'm not even the least bit worried about it. And I'm excited to say that all my children are also preppers now. Some of them were hard to convince because they just, and then when this all happened and all this, this insanity has happened. And oh, by the way, we're expected to have an asteroid coming at us on election day in the United States. Believe that. NASA just put out an article on it, and I'm just, you have to laugh. I mean, everything's gotten so ridiculously crazy and just out of hand and stupid this year that every time, there's always something else, and now it's an asteroid. So, but the good news is I think it'll come near Earth, but it's not supposed to impact us. But why not? I just have to laugh because it's just, I keep waiting to wake up. I keep thinking that this is just I have nightmares all the time. I have horrendous nightmares. And, I just keep waiting to wake up from this one. I mean, this one's mild compared to my nightmares, but I mean, you don't want to live it every day too, but it's crazy. And I laugh out of how it's getting hilarious. One thing after another. It's like, seriously, people. And I don't know. Maybe I'm just going crazy. But I want to get back to my book, The Lost Ways. And I've read this book all the way through. And it's actually a pretty good book. Has some things that a lot of the book I was already familiar with because my grandparents lived in West Virginia on top of a mountain. They had a big farm/ranch, and they did very well for themselves. They had this huge 3-story farmhouse, which I just loved, and it was so fun to go there, but we had to help with the chores when we'd go visit, and which I loved it because I lived in the city at the time with my parents, and to get out on the farm was like, that's me. So we'd go help them on the farm and stuff, and it wasn't all work. I mean, they let us play a lot more than work, spoil the grandkids. And they had my grandparents all total had 15 children, believe it or not, and they had like more grandchildren than they could count. So, but they spoiled us when we went there. They liked us to help out, but on the other hand, it's different when you're a grandparent. It's like you want to baby them and do all the things, let them get away with things that you never would let your kids get away with. So, and my daughter reminds me of that. But it was just great. But I remember helping with my grandmother still when I was I don't think she had a washing machine until I was like 30 years old. We'd go help her, and she would have the 2 big tubs, and then you had the clothesline, and she had a washboard, which is now a novelty. But you had the I don't know if you know what a washboard is. I probably should put a picture in here for you, but it's a board, and it's got ripples in it, and you rub your clothes over that in the soapy water, and that's how you wash your clothes. And then when you're done with that, once you're satisfied with that, you throw them over into another wash tub that had clean rinse water in it, and you would rinse your clothes in there, and then you wring them out by hand, and then you hang them up on the line. Well, I know how to do that because I used to help her, and it was a novelty to me because she was the only person I knew that didn't have a washing machine. But they got to a point where they were too old to run the farm, so they sold the farm and the ranch, and they moved to Columbus, Ohio, into a small house because it was just the 2 of them. And they still, they were farmers at heart, and they still went out and they planted their corn and their vegetables and whatever. And they were like in their 80s at this point. And they lived there until my grandpa passed away of a heart attack when he was 92. And my grandmother died 2 weeks after him. And it was kind of, those two had never, ever been separated since the day they got married. They got married when she was 14 and he was 21. And she died 2 weeks after he died. And the doctor said there was nothing physically wrong with her. He thinks she just died of a broken heart. Because, I mean, when you're together for, gosh, from the time you're 14 and 21 until you're in your 90s, that's a long time. And my family didn't believe in divorce, but those two were really very much in love. And so I had hoped that I could find a partner like that and live my whole life with them, but you know how things work out. So that's a whole nother story. But they were just two of the most loving people. But anyway, they did everything old-fashioned way. My grandfather dug a big cellar into the side of the mountain. You'd have to walk, their house was right up on top of the mountain, and you'd have to walk down the hill to the cellar. And he dug it out of the mountain, made this huge cellar, had shelves and everything. It was awesome. And it was cool in there all the time. And it didn't freeze because it was underground. So my grandma would can and put up all this food, and that cellar would be full. And of course, after a while, it was only the two of them. And so they had some people that would come and help them, when they got older. And they would give food to them. They would give food to all their kids. My grandmother made pickled green beans to die for. I mean, I've never tasted any green beans like that since. But unfortunately, I didn't get her recipe. But it was just, they just did everything very by hand and very physical. And the way that the whole point of that is that the world is going to be maybe for us a little bit of that. And it would be good to know some of the old ways, the ways that things were done. What if you lose your electricity? These people knew how, and that was just their everyday life. They knew how to make things work. And I think we should all be prepared to do the same. I'm in a fortunate position in that I've experienced that. I helped with that. I kind of know how to do things. I'm an herbalist. I make my own medicine. It's just, but a lot of people don't. And I prefer the old ways. And a lot of people are like, oh my gosh, these millennials, if they lose their iPods and their TV and all the electronics, they're going to go bonkers. They have no clue. So I've been teaching my grandchildren as much as I can how to grow their own food. And believe it or not, it's the funniest thing. My granddaughters and my grandson, would prefer to be at my house helping do my chores, because it's something they just enjoy, and they're learning, and they love it. And my oldest granddaughter is my next to the oldest granddaughter is extremely interested in doing the herbal medicine, and she begs me to teach her every time she comes out, so we make medicine together. But if you don't have someone to show you that, then you're going to get kind of lost. But this book, The Lost Ways, I highly recommend it. And they're not paying me to say this. I'm just saying I found a good book. But they teach you, and they give you recipes on how to make food that will last. They even have a recipe back in here for hardtack that the cowboys used to use, and the Civil War recipes that the soldiers used to use on the battlefield, and how to make food that will last and preserve it, and without refrigerators. Personally, my grandmother used to make hardtack. I mean, it tastes like cardboard and it's hard as a brick, but it teaches you but you know what? It's extremely high in protein and vitamin and minerals. So the hardtack will give you what you need to sustain as far as those items go. And it's in the book. There's all kinds of really good recipes. Talks about different plants you can use. And what I love is I had plants growing on my property, and it was wild lettuce. I didn't really pay too much attention to it. I thought it was just a weed. And then I got to reading about it, and it is one of the best natural painkillers you can have. And I used to get a migraine. Well, I still do get a migraine now and then. I go out there and use that plant, and when you break it, there's like a white ooze. And I wasn't prepared. I should have brought some stuff in to show you. But if you take that, and you have to be careful how much of it you take too, because it acts like a sedative in a way, but it is a good painkiller, and it didn't get rid of the migraine, but it dulled it to where it was really tolerable. I mean, it was just like a normal headache instead of your hair hurt, you know. And if you ever had a headache so bad that your hair hurts, you can't touch anything, you can't open your eyes because the slightest bit of light is excruciating. And when I take this, I mean, then it brings that back. It kills enough of the pain to where it's just a mild headache. So I'm all for this stuff, and I tried it on myself. Also, you're going to need something like like medical supplies is very important to save up and prep on. What if you have to, say for instance, God forbid, one of your family members broke their leg? You're going to have to know how to set that leg. You're going to have to know how to splint it. And you don't want to do it while the person's sitting there screaming in agony while you do it. So wild lettuce also, in certain doses, and you have to be careful, can actually put someone to sleep. And they can sleep while you work on their leg, and it's not as traumatic for them or for you. Because, you know, say one of your little grandbabies and you love them to death and they break their leg and you have to fix it. You don't want, you know, it would break my heart to listen to them screaming in pain while I'm trying to fix their leg. So I would rather have them calm and maybe go to sleep while I fix their leg, and then, you know, a few hours later wake up and it's still going to hurt, but you have a way to alleviate the pain. So I'm all for that. So that's also in this book. Talks about that and how much dosage, and it's per pound of person. You take how much they weigh, and then you base that on how much dosage you get them, because you know, naturally you can't give a child the same dose you would an adult. But this is great. It explains it all to you. And I want to read the preface of the book, and it kind of explains the purpose of the book. But I'll just go ahead and read it to you. And as you know, I grew up in an old-fashioned household and had some old-fashioned grandparents that did all the old ways. So I'm familiar with it. The tales of my parents and grandparents told me were of times that were very different from now. They told me of a time when you made the most of what you had, no matter how little that was. My mother would tell me of how it was common for richer families to pass down clothes to those poorer in the community, and the children were thrilled with their new clothes. My younger brother and I would come home from school to my grandparents' house, where we'd be fed soup, using the previous day's leftover and bones the butcher was going to throw out. It was the best soup I have ever tasted. My parents and grandparents were not only from a different age, but from a different philosophy. Here we are, human beings in the 21st century, several lifetimes and a world away from our grandparents and their ways. Have we become better at living? Has modern technology given us a better world to live in than our grandparents had? Honestly, I think not. I watch as we become ever more expectant that the world owes us a living. Consumerism has reached epic proportions, And people feel aggrieved if they don't own the latest gadget and struggle to cope without the internet, unable to entertain themselves. I find it ironic that we talk about the internet connecting the world. The Internet of Things, or the the IoT, as it's known, is the latest buzzword, where the excitement levels about interconnectivity between human operators and devices are at dizzying levels. The truth is, we have never been so disconnected from life, from the world, from the soil, from the trees and other animals, and from our souls. We have lost the power to look after our loved ones and ourselves. We are so reliant on others, often faceless corporations, to address our every waking need that many of us can barely cook a decent meal. We resort to takeout and frozen meals. Our health, both mental and physical, is suffering too, because our childlike dependence on others. Humans need to connect again, connect to each other and connect to our world. We need to learn the skills of our grandparents, skills that allowed them and their children to survive wars and famines. One of the most noticeable changes between our grandparents and us is that our attitudes and expectations. Our grandparents' generation did not have the luxuries we indulge in. Luxuries that have a finite life as we take more and more from the planet. My Nana did not go out and buy wardrobes full of clothes. She would make her own clothes. She would buy the fabric, often creating her own pattern from existing clothes, cut the material, sew the outfit. She was an amazing knitter and crocheted for the extended family. If an item of clothing became worn or ripped or a hole opened in a sock, it would be mended, not thrown out. This was long before recycling and upcycling were seen as on trend. This wasn't recycling, this was an expected way of doing things. My granddad grew fruit and vegetables and fished in the river. Without those home-produced foods, my mother and her siblings would not have eaten so well. He'd also barter and swap various items for meat, which was a treat for the family rather than a daily expectation, as meat is now. Home medicine was common. You simply couldn't afford to see the doctor, and so various folk medicine recipes were used for general illnesses and injuries. Medicines like poultices and various teas were used to treat everything from minor cuts to stomach pains. As our antibiotics stopped working, we may find these home remedies useful again. And that's the absolute truth. Our systems are becoming immune to some of these synthetic medications. But I noticed that on certain things have no effect on me medically. But the home medicine that I make does. So it's actually a little more potent without the side effects of the medicine head and all the other junk that comes with it. These skills are passed down. My mother, in turn, was taught from early childhood to sew and knit, making it her living as she grew into adulthood. Now, we're not talking about my mom, but the preface in the book. The recipes for folk medicines and which berries were okay to eat were learned from childhood, and children could fend for themselves. How many of modern day children, especially those raised in the city where everything's given to them, could fend for themselves? It would be an absolute disaster. That's why it's important for us to teach our children these ways. They may never use it, but they have the knowledge in case they do, and you never know. Look how things are going. I just think it's sad that we've lost these ways. We need to find that part of ourselves again, that willingness to stand up for ourselves and our family and say, I'll look after you. I don't need things that don't help me survive. And I don't need objects for the sake of having them. I do need strength and health and happiness and companionship. I do need the knowledge that my grandparents had to make do and mend, to grow and cook, build and learn, to produce but know when to stop producing, to have enough but not too much. As a species, we are reaching a tipping point. There are 7 billion of us on this small planet, with around 1 million more people being added every 4.8 days. Our world is changing, people, where the planetary conditions in the wilderness are being profoundly changed by human beings. We may well find that in the coming years, those old skills used by our grandparents suddenly became needed again. The next major crisis, EMP, war, or any major disaster that you can think of, will teach us the hard way. Many of us will die because so many of us are so detached from the real life. We will find ourselves needing to replace social media with community spirit. And instead of buying objects and clothes we don't need, we will develop the make do and mend attitude of our long gone relatives. We will embrace their lifestyle again and revel in the abilities we still have as human beings to live our lives using our own hands and minds and bodies, to be explorers again in our world and not passive users of it. I may have brought up old-fashioned, but those of us with the skills to grow our own food, treat our own wounds, build our own houses, in fact, those of us living a more conscious lifestyle, will reap those benefits in a world where the future is a very uncertain one. I couldn't have said it better. I was just going to talk about it. I'll make all those points, but the preface of this book actually said everything that I wanted to say, and they're spot on, and it makes a lot of sense. And then it goes into the different things that you can make for survival food, teaches you how to actually drill a well the old-fashioned way with muscle, and the way that you can do it and how they did it without machinery, long-term water storage. I mean, this book is absolutely awesome. And sometimes you buy a book, like I've got a lot of herbal books that they looked good when you looked at them online, and then you buy them and you get them and you're like, this is useless. It's like 500 pages of nothing, just blah, 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 but no useful information. But this book I bought, I read through it myself, and I highly recommend it. And if you need to know some of the old ways and how to do things, this book is really awesome. It may save your life even. As a matter of fact, I'm going to order more of these books and give them to my children as presents so that they can have them at their home. We all live relatively close together here in Nevada. But if you don't have a good horse or even a buggy, nobody has a buggy. Who's got buggies except the Amish? They're the smart ones. This is going to least impact them the most, so they're smart. Maybe they knew something we should have learned a long time ago. But I have a good bicycle. Like if you can't pump gas, if you don't have electricity, gas stations aren't pumping gas. I store gas on my property, just for that purpose, because I'm a prepper. I don't have a lot of gas, and it would run out soon. And I have a water well. I'm not on a city system. I'm out in the country. So everybody out here has their own wells, but they're run on electrics. They've got electric pumps down in the casing. So I have a generator, and my kids all have generators, so that you can't leave it running forever, but you can pump water enough to get a few buckets of water a day, if that's what you need to do to be self-sufficient. And, of course, I have the chickens, and we'll have eggs, and they provide meat. And the garden, when the bugs will leave me alone and I don't make stupid mistakes. But, I like living that way. I like working with my hands. I like getting out there and working in the garden and, taking care of the property and the animals. And, some people say, why do you do things the hard way? Well, to me, it's not really the hard way, it's the logical way. And being a prepper, I want to know all those things, because when things do crash, I don't want to crash. I don't want my family to crash. And so I think we should all be thinking along those lines. So I don't usually get on and just want to talk about how I feel about things, but this impressed me. This book impressed me. Highly recommend this book. And what I talked about with the old ways was written in the preface. And I guess I should say his name, because I can't take credit for what he wrote. It was, it doesn't say who it was written by, but it's in the book, guys. So I'm going to quit talking. Get this book, The Lost Ways. You can look it up on the internet. They have a whole series of books. I was impressed with their herbal book. I'm always looking at new herbal books and remedies, because, you don't know everything, so you can always learn something new. And I'm really, really into the herbal medicines, so I'm always looking at everybody's remedies and thoughts, and because I want to learn more and try them out myself. Some things, you're going to read them and go, like that one book I bought was, I'm not going to say the name of the book, but it was totally useless. I've got 3 or 4 books that I've got a whole library of herbal books, herbal medicine stuff. And I also have a small library of nursing information, like setting legs, what to do with, different injuries, and what type, and then I match them up with what herbal medicines would be best to go with that particular injury. So I've probably done a lot more than some people have, but I've done it for years. I've had a lot of time to learn. And if you know someone who has spent a lot of time doing this, those people are going to become very valuable in your community if things do go really bad, which it's quite possible they will. But I urge everyone to please stock up on, you don't have to go overboard, but at least have 6 months of canned food, stuff in your freezer, medicine supplies. If you're taking prescription medicines, the only thing I take is thyroid, because I had my thyroid gland removed in 1999. So I have to take a little thyroid pill every day. And it's synthetic. You can't, believe me, I've researched it. You cannot, there's no herb or anything to replace that, the thyroid medication that you need, the Synthroid. You can make it, and Canada does have natural thyroid. You make it from a pig, some kind of a membrane from a pig. But I'm not that knowledgeable, and you have to have a medical facility to do this, and in a lab or something. I'm not that I'm not that knowledgeable or have the equipment to do such. So I save up my pills, and what I do is every month I'll hold back a little bit. Like but I've done this for years, but I'll take 5 pills out of my prescription, and they'll still fill your prescription if you're 5 short. Like, and how many people wait till the very last day, till they only have 1 pill left? Maybe some do, but till you go to the pharmacy and then you get your refill. So you usually have a few left from the month before. Take those few and put them in a bottle, airtight, freezer-proof bottle. And then I take a freezer bag and put it over top of that just to keep it from getting any moisture. And I put them in my freezer. And I do that, and then I rotate. So I'll put my fresh stuff sometimes. I'll put the whole fresh bottle in storage, take out the older bottle, which is still good, because I'll tell you one thing, and I know a doctor here in town that's been helping me, and she's into herbals. She's an internist, fantastic doctor. But she also believes in herbal remedies and practices at home. She said that a lot of your medicines, like, for example, thyroid medication, it has an expiration date on the bottle. But your medicine is still good for 6 to 9 months after that expiration date. I wouldn't go any further than that, or a year. But 6 to 9 months after, she said it's exactly the same potency and it's okay. The reason that and I hate to say this, but this is her theory, and her being a doctor, the pharmacies put the expiration date on there so that you buy your medication more often, so they make more money, which to me makes sense, because we all know how we're taken advantage of in the medicine area. So I just keep mine and I rotate it and keep the really fresh put aside, get one of the bottles that's still good but it's close, take that out. And you know what? It hasn't affected my health whatsoever. I'm still just fine. I go for a blood test once a year to check the levels. Everything's fine. So it does work. So I believe what she said. So think about that with your medications. Research your medication. Ask questions. See how long that will last past your expiration. How long you can keep your medicine, and have some stored for if things happen and you, well, like for example, I'm out here in the middle of nowhere. I can't just run to the pharmacy. I mean, it's a little bit of an effort. What if I don't have the gas? I can't, or the pharmacies are closed, because out here where we are, what if trucking gets stopped and we can't get supplies? Then we're just out of luck, and we're all going to die out here. But 90% of us are preppers, and so I think where I'm at, we would probably be okay. And we're friendly enough to each other that I think if somebody was in real Hurtsville, we could help each other out. I've had people actually, before all this came up, ask me for medicines for certain things. So, you just, I think we'd be okay out here, but you still have to store up your medication. Make that a priority. And water. Make sure that you have some kind of water source you can go to. I have, in case I couldn't use my well, there are creeks. I mean, it's a little bit of a hike to them, but we do have fresh mountain creeks, and still you have to be careful. You boil your water. I have I go to a military site that has military supplies. It's on the internet. Anybody can order from it. It's military surplus, and you can get water soluble tablets that will clean the water for you. So I have a bunch of those. And you just gotta just think about what your family needs, what you need to survive, and make sure you have some, even in the city. I talked to a few girls in the city that live in apartment buildings, and I said, you'd be surprised what you can plant out on your balcony. You could have like a little vegetable garden on your balcony. You'd really be surprised how much you can pack in. And if it's just you, then you're going to be fine. You can grow your own food. Store canned food. A lot of canned food does not expire for at least 2 or 3 years. A lot of it doesn't. If you dry can your beans and your rice and whatever, rice and oats, for example, will last 10 to 15 years. If it's canned properly, dry canned, with the heat and everything, it'll last 10 to 15 years. So there's a lot of things you can do to take care of yourself. And order that book if you're interested. I am impressed with it. I mean, that's just me. But I wanted to read that first part to you because They said in this book exactly what I wanted to say. So you all take it easy, take care, and I seriously hope that you all are making some provisions for yourself. And I'm not saying it's going to be this way forever, but we don't know. We don't know in America, we don't know what the elections are going to be. And all this, I try not to listen to the news, but all this talk of civil war, and you see what's going on in our cities with all the fighting. People are starting to shoot each other now at the riots. It's just getting really, really nasty, and I don't think it's just gonna like that end. The pandemic might, but I don't think all the civil unrest we have in the United States is gonna turn out well for us in the long run. So be prepared, people. Take care of yourselves. Have some kind of way to defend yourself and your family. I have a few ways that I take care of it, and I'm fortunately very good with guns. I hate to say that word because I don't want to get nuked, but on the program. But and if you don't want to do that, there are other ways, and you can watch some of the prepping. There's you can use even as basic as, and this sounds cruel, but you got to think about it. If you're being attacked and someone's going to harm you, you need to have some way to protect yourself or your children or your grandchildren. But I even saw someone who's opposed to owning guns, which is fine if that's your thing. They bought some of those super soakers, those water spray guns, those big ones. And what they do is they fill instead of water in the gun, they put bleach in it. And if you see, have you ever gotten straight bleach directly on your skin? It burns. It really burns. You shoot someone in the neck or the face area, you're going to stop them right there. They're done. You won't kill them, but you're going to put them in a world of hurt for a long time. So, that sounds horrible, but it works if you don't want to own a gun. And there's lots of things you can do. I have some big dogs. They all weigh like 100 pounds each, that patrol the property. They just, they're running free on the property. My property is completely fenced, but the dogs are out there free. And if someone comes on my property, they don't like it. And they let me know that there's somebody out there. So, there's a lot of things that you can do to protect yourself, and I highly recommend it because I'm kind of hard to get to out here. It'd be an awful long walk for somebody. I'm 200 miles from Reno and 200 miles from Elko, right smack in the middle. So if someone's going to walk 200 miles to come out here and harass us, I don't think they're going to make it in this desert. You don't do that. You don't take off walking in the desert unless you have a plan, provisions, and you're experienced. So I don't feel too threatened out here, and thank God my family's all out here. But if you live in the city, you really have to be careful, because people don't know how to take care of themselves, and they're going to want to have what you have if you've been prepping. And it's another thing I told these girls that live in the city, they're young girls. I said, I'm so happy that you're prepping, but don't tell people that you're prepping, because people in your building may not be. And if if someone's hungry and they're desperate, or they have children and they're desperate and they know you have something, you're not their friend anymore. You're going to lose your friends when they get hungry enough and they need to survive, or their children are starving. You're not their friend. They will knock you out of the way in a minute and take what you have. So don't tell people what you have, especially if you live in the city. Now, if you come out to a farm, you're going to expect them to have something. And don't put all your eggs in one basket. Like if somebody comes out to my place and they break into my house, say they successfully break in, and they want to rob me of my food and stuff. Well, they can have what's in the pantry, and they can have what they can see because I have a secret stash, and they're not going to know that's there. And I can say that because I doubt anybody's going to come out this far. But if they do, though, they're going to be in a hurry. They're going to want to dash and grab, so they're going to go to the pantry. They're going to take everything they can carry, and they're out of here. And that way, you're not devastated. If someone does take all of your stuff in your pantry, you still have your secret stash to tide you over, and you're not completely devastated and wiped out. So anyway, I talked too long. If anybody listened this long, thank you. I appreciate it. And you all have a great day. And just please take care of yourselves. Do what you need to do to protect you and your family. And I'm not talking just the United States, everywhere. Because it's going to affect the world globally. And I just have to hope and pray that we all come out of this better people and learned a lesson from this. They're already wiping out our American history, and destroying our statues, wiping out our history. They're demanding that anything that happened pre-Civil War is obliterated out of our history books. Why? If you don't have your history, you don't learn anything. You need that. No matter how good, bad, or ugly it is, there's lessons there to be learned. And by pretending it never happened and obliterating it is going to cause you to do the same thing again. And it's true. History repeats itself. If you don't learn, you're going to keep doing it. And Einstein once made this statement that doing the same experiment, exact same thing, over and over again, expecting a different result, is insanity. And that's what's going to happen. So take it easy, people. And I hope you took this serious. I know you probably just think I'm a rambling old lady, but I've lived it. I've been there, done that. And please take care of yourselves. Do what you need to do to provide for you and your family. And we'll talk to you later. I love you all. And you have a good day, good morning, good evening, wherever you are. And bless you all. Bye-bye.